This is not Russia. To Donald Trump and his pathetic band of white, privileged, criminal businessmen, I would like to say to him, "Niet, sir, niet, niet, niet."
Rosie O'Donnell really hates Trump. But unlike most people in her world who really hate Trump, she can credibly claim it's not a new thing. She's been hating Trump for many years. But she's no closer to winning that debate. Yesterday on MSNBC, Rosie showed she still has not recovered from the 2016 election. Here's part of it.
We are going to right the ship. There's no way that he's going to prevail because he's evil. He's dark. It's the opposite of what America stands for. I always thought, why didn't they counter-program his rallies, his Nazi-esque rallies? When he was elected, what I wrote on Twitter was we should impose martial law till we make sure that the Russians weren't involved in the final tallies of the vote.
He wants to send the military to the border, so...
I want to send the military to the White House to get him. That's what I want.
Martial law? Nicole Wallace thinks that's a good idea. Dean Cain is an actor. Joins us tonight. You know, Dean, you've been here all your life. Obviously, you're a famous actor. If I were running the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, I would call Rosie O'Donnell and say, pull back a little. Martial law, really? You're embarrassing us.
Yeah, well, I mean, that thing was a joke she said about sending the military over to get him out of the White House.
Yeah.
It was a joke, a thinly veiled joke. But when she did say, you know, she tweeted martial law, you know, impose martial law until we're sure the Russians had nothing to do. That was insane. I mean, that's a coup.
Well,
that's
it is
coup.
insane.
It's crazy.
So I mean, but don't other people in her world say, look, Rosie, I get it. You don't like Trump. You're a liberal. Okay, fine. But you're discrediting yourself and the rest of us by acting like a mental patient on TV. Don't do that.
Well, that sounds entirely reasonable, Tucker. Why would something like that happen?
No, I guess that's right.
Completely reasonable. No, you know, I know Rosie. I knew her back on our show back in the day, and we were very friendly and wonderful. I don't know that she would talk to me now, but I disagree with her.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to sit across from her and say, I disagree. And even on that show, all they did was laugh, and they're all on the same side. Why didn't anybody offer a dissenting opinion and say, well, that doesn't make any sense?
Yeah, why didn't Nicole Wallace say, really, martial law?
I mean, because
it seems a little, I mean, like, you know. So how often do you hear stuff like that here at dinner?
Monday through Sunday.
Monday through Sunday.
Occasionally, I just won't go to dinner, so I'll miss it that night.
So it's ubiquitous.
It's constant, and on every film set, I hear it all the time. But here's the funny thing: I'll hear it from some of the actors, but then we'll go through and we're shooting something, and you know, the grip will give me a little bump, and be like, "Hey, I'm with you. I know."
That's such an interesting point, and I've noticed this exact thing. How different are the political views of the crews, the sometimes unionized wage-earning crews, from those of the celebrities working on the set?
I would say they're diametrically opposed. That's been my experience, and I've only been doing this for about 40 years. So,
so don't the actors at some point say, I'm supposed to be on the side of the average person, the underdog. I'm surrounded by underdogs, people making 100th of what I make, but I hate them for their views? Is there any dissonance?
No, they don't hear that at all. Because actors are, you know, all we hear is what we want to hear most of the time. I'm putting myself in that camp because I am an actor, but I'm a Princeton-educated kid. I travel the world. I do things that I think have some substance in them. I talk to world leaders. I'm in bad places. But a lot of these people, you're coddled as an actor. So, and you're told, oh, you're so great all the time that people start to believe it, and they start to believe that their opinion means more than the guy who's, clapping the
I mean, if you're
clapboard
making
there.
$10 million a year and denouncing your cameraman as immoral, maybe you would get some self-awareness.
Or at least, out of focus.
Yeah, exactly. Out of focus. Dean Cain, great to see you.
Tucker, always a pleasure.
Counter-program his rallies, his Nazi-esque rallies. Why didn't the Democratic Commission get together and go, when he's there, we're going to get Springsteen and have some speakers and the local politicians. Why is he's allowed to do this reality show? Mm-hmm. And everyone just follows it. And nobody says,
Well, you've worked in television forever. Why didn't they do that?
Well, because I think the mainstream media didn't frame the rallies as they were. Nobody said that he paid for people to be there, that there were only this many people, he had to move inside the gym because the outdoor venue was too big. No one said the facts, even when the rallies are happening now. I wish the news media would frame it for the people watching it. Here's another hate-filled rally full of lies by a president who wasn't really elected.
Let me just push back. I mean, Fox doesn't even take the rallies anymore. So I don't disagree on the problem as it was at the time, but that's not the problem now. How do Democrats win now?
Yeah, that is a scary thing coming up with 19 days left. You know, we have to get out the vote. That's the only thing to do. That if a tsunami happens and the people show up there, like in Tiananmen Square all those years ago, those inspirational photos of the woman in front of the tank, that's where we're going in America, unless we turn up at the polls.
Democrats win district by district, state by state. They have to do that, and candidates have to be appropriate for the district. They have to speak to those voters, and however they can. I mean, and hold, you know, political disagreements that I might have once had with Steve or with you about policies, you know, they're all held in abeyance at a time of national emergency.
Okay, so
yes,
they are. You are my sister. You are my brother.
I feel the same way.
Let me put this to you. So 60% of the country disapproves of Donald Trump, and Democrats are wringing their hands like, oh, I don't know. I think the House is okay, not the Senate. We're not. Why not? Why aren't Democrats more bullish about their chances?
Because we don't have a real leader. Joe Biden is not the leader. Who's the leader? Who's the one out there rallying us together?
You know, just
Joe Biden at all. I think Joe Biden is part of the old dynamic and the old paradigm, and I think it's progressive new leaders like Stacey Abrams, the governor in Georgia. These are the people that are making you feel like we could maybe topple him. He feels now indestructible. Since Kavanaugh, the depression level has been, for women especially, has been so immense. We couldn't believe that he did that he got him through to the Supreme Court. It was shocking to me that he didn't even have him on the list until he wrote this, by the way, presidents should not be held accountable for their criminal actions. Then he put them on the list and got him all the way through in spite of everything that happened. That was the terrifying moment of Trump for me.
One of the other spokespeople is Beto O'Rourke.
Beto, I want to talk about
has that sort of
in the pursuit of happiness. It is about the most perfect idea ever put to paper by the mind of man. We've not always lived by it, but the defense of it is essential, and we see it sundering every hour of every day with this vile administration.
Trump doesn't even get what you said. That's the problem. He's like sitting there watching Fox right now, and he doesn't understand even the basic concepts or the theories that you presented just then.
A Twitter war breaking out between two prominent voices on the left and the right. It all started with Rosie O'Donnell's suggestion that she would bribe lawmakers to vote against the tax bill. Ben Shapiro wasn't having it, saying that's a violation of federal law. From there, things got increasingly, well, personal, with O'Donnell telling Shapiro to do things that we can't say here on television, prompting Shapiro to send out this tweet today, just reported Rosie for targeted harassment, mainly to see if Twitter does indeed have a double standard. Everyone knows if Rosie were conservative, Twitter would suspend her in a hot second. So Twitter, put your money where your mouth is, #MeToo. Rosie replied simply, oh, Ben. Shapiro's response, Rosie, all victims deserve to be believed, and the story doesn't end there. Joining us now in an exclusive interview, Ben Shapiro, editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. Now, I know you just heard from Twitter. I want you to hold on to that for 1 second, just so we can make sure everybody's up to speed. Her original tweet, which I saw fly by too, where she says $2 million to Senator Susan Collins, Senator Jeff Flake, if they vote no. No, I will not kill Americans. That's what she tweeted. I don't know how this is killing Americans, but that's okay. For the sour rich, I think it was supposed to say super, but she was impaired in some way while doing this, probably with her fingers. DM me, Susan, DM me, Jeff. You responded that if Trump orders Sessions to investigate Rosie, he will be carved into Rushmore by Friday, which I thought was a pretty good burn. But what inspired you to pile on this mess? Because it was already out of control.
Well, I mean, it was obvious that she had actually violated, at least formally, 18 U.S.C. 210, 201,
they
one
can't
of the
bribe
provisions.
Officials.
Yeah, exactly. A specific provision of the U.S. Code, and in doing so, she had done this on Twitter, and so I sort of piled on a little bit, and she responded by essentially telling me to perform an anatomical act on her that certainly would fall under Me Too sexual harassment. So, but what was weird about it is that she told me to perform it on a male appendage of hers.
Well,
so that was. It was weird.
Let's not get into that because
it was
could be
not
having
great.
dinner right now.
I think that's probably smart, and so I responded by essentially saying that she was already a felon. There was no need to make herself into a homophobic sexual harasser as well.
The serious
things sort of degenerated from there.
Yeah, absolutely. The serious part of this is that she told you to do things to her that, of course, Harvey Weinstein and lots of people are in trouble for trying to get people to do to them. And if there was, I mean, if a man said this to a woman, you say conservative versus liberal, But if any of the normal tables were turned, people would recoil in horror and just would really be on your side, but not this time.
No question. I mean, if I had said exactly the same words to Rosie O'Donnell that she said to me on Twitter, I have very little doubt that I would have been suspended or expelled from Twitter for targeted harassment or abuse under their rules. So I decided to find out exactly how Twitter operated. And so I reported her for targeted harassment and abuse. And then I have now received back their notice that apparently there was no violation of the Twitter rules, which is astonishing. They say that she did not actually perform behavior that crosses the line into abuse. Which I totally understand why we can't read these tweets on air because they're really obscene and abusive, but that's why Twitter probably should have done something if they cared about enforcing their own rules. I actually don't want Rosie O'Donnell tossed off Twitter. I find her far too amusing, and I'm sad that she blocked me today. But that said, I think that Twitter should be held to account for its own enforcement of the rules because it's wildly inconsistent.
Yeah, look, we're looking right there where you can see that Rosie blocked you. It does seem very hypocritical on Twitter's part, which is sort of the focus, because Rosie has gone off a bunch of times before. I mean, she has a long Twitter history. Some of her best times were during the debates where she called President Trump all kinds of names, comparing him to body parts, saying how orange he was, talking about his appearance. I mean, again, things that if tweeted at a woman, or if tweeted at Hillary Clinton about her appearance, people would be all up in arms, but this is what she was doing to Donald Trump. She even said he was like the snake oil salesman from Little House on the Prairie, which I kind of liked for obvious reasons. But all these things going on, she's on Twitter, but Twitter does nothing about it when she attacks someone with what should be sexual harassment. Do they have a track record of banning other people for saying things like this, though?
Well, I mean, they do have a track record of at least blocking people's tweets that are considered abusive or suspending people who are abusive. And they have a track record of going after people for political reasons as well. Again, their terms of service suggest that you are not allowed to issue tweets like this, but they have a rather arbitrary standard, obviously, for what they choose to enforce or not enforce. My guess is that they didn't want to open the can of worms that would have necessitated opening in order to take any action against Rosie O'Donnell for suggesting that I do certain things to her, which is horrifying.
I'm still stuck on the fact that she seemed very sincere in the fact when she went on originally and she tweeted long tweets about exactly how much money she wanted to give for them to vote no and DM me. And I mean, she sounded very serious. So I don't know. There's a lot of debate right now about whether or not that's a violation of the law since it was on Twitter. We'll see. Ben Shapiro, hat tip to you, my friend. Thank you for coming on.
Good to see you.